Hey guys, it's Stay at Home Dad Brian here. Today is Fancy Friday. Just got my tie on, and today is also September 11th. It is the 19th anniversary of the infamous terrorist attacks on New York City. And I guess, yeah, it's kind of like a strange tone. But yeah, I guess I just want to talk a little bit about what I remember about that day. Uh, I was in New York City in the time I was a senior at NYU Film School, and I remember the morning when it happened. I was going to class and I saw like the first tower on fire, and remember my reaction at the time was just kind of like the typical New Yorker reaction, like, well, that's New York. It didn't really sink in. So I went to class. It was a class on experimental film, and then they ended the class early, and they were evacuating the building. And I was still kind of processing and cracking jokes and whatnot. And then, yeah, everybody left. So the first thing I did was to call somebody who I wasn't dating, but we had like gone on two dates. Uh, so I went over to this person's house. She lived in Brooklyn. I walked over the Brooklyn Bridge, and then immediately, like when I got there, I think we both realized that this was like very awkward, not the right thing. So yeah, to anybody out there who's single and dating, just to uh, from experience, if you've gone on two dates with somebody and you're in some kind of apocalyptic event, think very hard about whether that apocalyptic event is the right time for a third date. So yeah, that like we got there and it was weird, and then we were locked down. Uh, but then so afterwards, like the next day, I went back to my apartment, and I heard that they were like needing volunteers down at like I think like an armory or somewhere. So I went down to volunteer. I didn't really know what it was going to be, but it was basically like this was like a day or two after the actual attacks happened, and people from all over the country had just like shipped in supplies because they wanted to help, but it was just like boxes and boxes of like juice boxes and granola bars and cookies, and it was all this just like flooding in. So I was basically at a table for hours, like all through the night, just like packing this stuff into boxes over and over and over again. And then like sometime around like 3 a.m., sometime in the middle of the night, some army personnel came in and they were like, hey, we're going down to ground zero. Who wants to come? And I just wanted to get out of there. So I was like, yeah, me, I want to come. So I got into an army truck, and we basically went down to ground zero, and it was weird. It was like downtown. The whole place was covered in ash and dust. We went into a church, and we just started loading like blankets and all those boxes of food and stuff, and then just storing them in this church that was down by Wall Street. And I think I just kept working through the night, and then the next day or so after that, I had to go to the doctor I got like a sprained shoulder or something, and then my arm was in a cast after that. So yeah, that's what happens when a sensitive film student tries to help out the army. He gets his arm pulled just from moving boxes of food. But yeah, and that's what I remember from that day. And then like in the days and weeks and months that came afterwards, I remember it was a weird feeling around New York City. People were walking around wearing masks, which seemed very weird at the time. Now it's not so weird, but yeah. And there were just all these rumors about like that was just the first one. There's another one coming. And I remember once we graduated, like a bunch of people moved out to LA, and I felt like I just wanted to like stay in New York City. Uh, like I don't know. I guess it made me feel some kind of like ownership or something to New York City. Like if something happened, if something went down, like I wanted to be there. Um, so yeah, so and then I lived in New York City for about like 15 years after that. And then Emily and I started dating. She got a really good job opportunity. We moved out to Utah. Uh, and ever since then, like I've been able to go back to New York City like once or twice a year just to visit. And man, I love it. It's great. It's really great to be in New York City, uh, like going back to visit as a tourist because it's like you don't have the pressure of where am I going to live? How am I going to pay for the place that I live? You know, you could just kind of like walk around and enjoy how amazing the city is. But yeah, I'm thinking about New York City today. I'm thinking about all my friends who live in New York City, and obviously, you know, things. I seems like things are maybe crazy there. I don't know. It's hard to tell, like depending on what news coverage you watch, what's happening in New York City right now. I know there's like a lot has gone on in a lot of cities across the country with um, protesters clashing with police, and yeah, it's a crazy time for all cities across America right now, including New York City. And yeah, I'm just for all my friends who are out there still in New York City holding on the fort. I'm thinking about you today. I love you. I miss you, and we're glad that Emily and I are glad we're here out with Quill because it seems much safer. And but I do really miss New York City, and my heart kind of breaks not being there and not knowing what's going on. Yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to say for September 11th. If by any chance you're watching this and you lost somebody on that day, I'm so sorry. I know my dad, he works in finance. He lost a really good friend of his that day. Uh, yeah, you know, it's it, obviously a tragic event. But I was thinking about in the months that came afterwards, there was this sort of, I think, like feeling of unity around the country and like wanting to help each other, and just everyone in the country maybe feeling like they were all in the same boat together because we had gone through this tragedy together. And I guess maybe that is a silver lining, a small silver lining of it. Thinking about it, especially now in 2020 when it seems like we're about to like rip each other's heads off, everybody in America. So yeah. Anyways, September 11th, that is my video for today. Have a great weekend, everybody.